which is interesting because that was not something that the overall team had me do originally. So it was a different take on how this page should look. Hi, everyone. So I am back from session 4, and I really got, again, a lot of great information. And I would have to say, being able to talk one-on-one with an agent and understand more of the business side of things and how an agent might, kind of seeing things from their perspective and being able to know, like what they're doing, what their position is, how they look at outreach, how they connect with you. It feels like, I don't know, it's just so informative. And I wonder if a lot of it has to do with my needing to be able to speak one-on-one with someone, and that making more of a difference as far as me, like, my taking that information in and really being able to, like, discuss it with someone and ask the questions and see how the other person talks about, what a process is like and what to expect. But I mean, he went over my portfolio, my website, gave advice. I did a lot of work. I mean, it really wasn't that much work because it's basically what I was trying to pull together and what I was trying to do. And it's not just because of the program, the iSpot program, but I did a lot of work. So what you're looking at is it's not a whole lot of changes that I've made here. As far as the layout of the portfolio and everything, I made the portfolio the home screen, which was one of the big things that they had me do with my website. However, with the session 4, one of the things that he brought up that was interesting and really it makes sense to me as far as being a graphic designer and being able to, I guess, show hierarchy of information and being able to have, like, larger images that you can sort of make stand out and have, like, something that's more visually appealing, something that shows the imagery a little bit better, a little bit more interesting. It's kind of hard to say, but the thing that came up was, that the first row is pretty strong and everything, but I needed to probably make some of these bigger, and call more attention to some of these works in a larger kind of design or format. Totally possible. Not even an issue with Squarespace anyway. What I had been doing was I just, created sort of a grid gallery that just you add your artwork to it, portfolio pieces, and it just sort of populates and moves things around. And I can move the images around so that there are certain ones that are next to others, but it doesn't give me a lot of control as far as, like, the size of certain images in comparison to other images. And so this is one big grid system, and it kind of, it's based on the space between the images and the height of the images. And that is basically how the layout and the design of this page is created, right? And essentially what I will need to do is to create multiple sections so that I can have multiple grid portfolios and create smaller groups of images and just stack them. One of the things that he mentioned was, pulling all of the book covers together in one area, pulling all the character work in one area, pulling all of the editorial in one area, all of the black and white line work into one area, and kind of grouping things in that manner, which is interesting because that was not something that the overall team had me do originally. So it was a different take on how this page should look. And so feeling like it's kind of like, whose advice do I need to listen to? And I feel like that the agent, the particular person that was speaking with me, has quite a bit of expertise and knowledge and everything. So definitely going to take what he says to heart, and I agree with it. So I think it's going to be some of both, but I think on the hierarchy that his comments are even more spot on. And so it's kind of like I'm getting multiple perspectives through this program as well. Not terribly different, but it gives me some things to think about and some things to work on, right? And within this program, one of the things that I did is I took the time to create layouts of various book covers. I just pulled it together. And I mean, I'm a graphic designer by trade and an illustrator, and I know how to do things, in a pretty efficient manner. So it's not that big of a deal for me to lay something like this out. I took a little bit more time on the cover typography, and, I did add new portion, like new additional pieces of illustrative elements, like in this particular piece, I actually pulled the flower. This flower is also this flower, but you'll notice that there aren't any petals right here in the original art. And so I pulled that over, but then I was able to, expand on it and draw a little bit more so that it could be fully shown on this part of the page on the back cover. And then I added these feather elements and these wispy sort of lines here. And then on the cover itself, the very front cover, I did more hand-drawn typography. So that was a big deal. And I did that in multiple projects. This Oracle one is one of those. So this artwork is actually showing in a art show in Huntsville. It's a 16 by 20 mounted on wood panel. It's, what I consider a one-off original piece. It's got a wax seal on it. I mean, it's, ready to be purchased, okay? However, it did not have this border line and it didn't have this text. So it was just the woman with the hummingbird and all of the flowers in the background. So it's actually an original piece that is what I would consider a fine art piece. I took it upon myself through this program to, I mean, I just realized it. I was inspired to create some covers. I pulled it together. I added the border. I added the text, as you can see here, I did hand drawn lettering with, overlaying elements of the illustration from behind. So, these vines and droplets and things that are, coming out of the letters and things. These are all things that I added and put into this work that I feel like it's really it was not a difficult task to pull together, right? But at the same time, it's going to give me the ability to have some examples of this kind of stuff in there. And I mean, I really believe that, people are visual. We need to see this kind of work. So this is, an original illustration artwork that I created. I actually created it for my daughter. It's got some little secret hidden elements in there that are representative to her. Here's another one that I, created a whole new book cover. But I mean, like this artwork was not completely finished. I think all of the texture of the tree and some of these, like swirling lines in the background and that kind of thing were not done. So I took the time to go back and finish that and add some text. Brand new illustrative character. This is something that I have been working on for quite some time. However, I did all of this through the program as well. And I did some mock-ups for the various book cover designs. So I had done an infographic for a science sort of program and was able to, like put some time into drawing a human cell and like drew it from scratch. And then through this program, I thought, well, let me do some research. And I found an article that was essentially about AI being able to be used to look into the human cell, right? And to provide more information on the human cells of a person and be able to diagnose before something is way far down the line, right? So it's sort of a medical science editorial piece is what I turned it into. So that's interesting. That's that artwork. This one is probably the only one that I had already created. And this is sort of middle grade chapter book slash graphic novel idea that I have been working on for probably over a year. Just a storyline and some information along that. And this character I pulled out to create some sample sort of character development. Here you can see, a much more finished character at the top. Then you've got your watercolor layers and your sketches. Here it's just showing sort of a process. I made this just one evening working on trying to create some things that are a little bit more text heavy. And I need to do more of that. I enjoy it a lot and I'm able to pull that together. That's not a difficult thing, it's just a matter of doing the thing. More mock-ups, finished art. This goes along with the Cloak of Dreams inside page. More book covers. These are all things that I've, you know, pulled together and added and, finished up some illustrative layouts. Like I said, it's been a long time coming, like I did a lot of the base work here and had the more extensive drawing already completed, and then went into this mentorship program with a lot of work already in process, excuse me, or nearly done, and then basically formatted it, per their advice and their recommendations, pulled some things together. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And I've got a children's book illustration conference coming up at the end of this month. So I needed to have, more of these finalized pieces pulled together that I could put into, an illustrative portfolio, right? I needed to have some actual examples, and that's what I did here. I did that. So, like this piece, I had already kind of worked this out. This was not, I had already been working on it, but I was able to finish it. And primarily, the only thing I needed to do was finish the owl's feathers, and it was going to be a completed layout, a completed spread for a nonfiction children's book. And I'm pretty excited about it. I had fun doing it, and I think it's a valuable lesson. I think it's a valuable project to have experimented with and added to my portfolio, right? I really personally enjoy nonfiction. And so I think that that is a valuable direction. I also, during this mentorship program, had the opportunity to apply for illustration awards, projects, and things like that. I've actually done several throughout this. During this program, I have entered several artworks into different competitions, illustrator publications, and in that case, I had to finish some of these things in order to have something to enter into these, award projects or whatever. And this is one of those. It's a series of Alice in Wonderland illustrations. And that was sort of the assignment, the award or the competition. And I was able to get runner up. I was able to get like second place. So for not having anything and creating something within a week or two of the deadline, it's pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Like I created these and I'm pretty happy with them. And they were very fun to make, and that's to me, that's, a large part of it is for me to have fun and for me to be able to, do something with the work that I enjoy making, right? So, but gosh, there's just so many elements to what the agent said that I feel like it's, you know, very instructive, very helpful. I kind of got a bit of validation. Okay, your work is, ready to be shared. And that is huge. I mean, if you're a creative person and you've been working for some time and you've, built a portfolio or you've been doing some drawing or sketching or whatever, even when, other people tell you, it's really good stuff or they like what you're doing, there's something about getting a professional review, a professional perspective so that you can basically look at your portfolio from another perspective and be able to get valuable insights that as an artist or creative person, you may be completely blind to and don't even realize that those pieces are missing or you've gone off into some kind of strange direction that isn't going to be beneficial to you, or if you need to practice more or build more understanding or work on something is, but being told by an experienced professional that your portfolio is ready, that's massive. I mean, because and as I told him, I have never reached out to anybody on anything. I have never shared my portfolio with anyone within the industry of editorial or publishing, children's, nonfiction, fiction, fantasy. I have not contacted anyone. I have interacted with people and I have made connections through social media like you do, but I have not shared anything. I have not directly connected with anybody, not at all. And so to hear someone validate your portfolio is ready, maybe the simplest, most ridiculous thing to be able to hear, but we all need to hear that and to know where we stand. And I think that is hugely valuable. And like I said earlier, to be able to speak to somebody one on one and get that to like really pick their brain and ask them the questions and get more direct advice than just reading a book about the illustration industry or reading a blog post or watching some videos on YouTube or some reels that somebody is putting out that is basically all encompassing, not directly for you. Man, it's such a valuable experience. It has been so incredibly helpful. And it also gave me a little bit of a push because I knew that I was going to have sessions. I knew that I wanted to get the most out of it. And so I worked to complete things. And that just pushed me ahead. You know what I mean? It may, and it's just a thinking brain thing where you're pushed ahead to finish something up because you know that this is your chance to show the people that you're getting a review from, that you're getting help from, what it is that you want to show and do that work. So, my recommendation from my experience in getting someone to review my illustration portfolio, and this did cost me a price. I did have to pay a substantial amount. Well, what I felt was an investment on my career to get this help to enter this program. And I feel like it was incredibly, incredibly valuable and really gave me a lot of insight that I would have never been able to get just, exploring the internet and trying to understand the illustration industry, right? It was one on one advice. And my recommendation is that if you're choosing to pay and invest in a mentorship program, a portfolio review, be prepared and do the work. Get involved in it, really learn and follow through because otherwise you're not going to get that type of you're not going to get like the really good feedback. If you come in with a partial portfolio or just a little bit of work, or you haven't truly, like through the process of the mentorship sessions, which there are 4, you didn't go ahead and make some of those changes and you didn't actively pursue some of those activities so that you could get the most out of it. Like you could get additional feedback. So you revised and you made the changes and you did the work so that you could get that additional feedback and more information rather than just the initial information, right? So if you're going to invest in it, and I highly recommend it, I feel like it's a matter of knowing your time frame, knowing your ability to put the work into it during the program, and then doing that and actually following through so that you can get as much information as you possibly can. I'm going to keep up with this and I'm going to keep moving on it. And I've got a lot of great information, one on one, direct feedback. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. I feel like, okay, Now it's time to make steps forward so that I can learn more and grow more and, really participate in this industry that I'm so excited about. So, if you're interested in this mentorship program, you want to know a little bit more about it, I'm going to put a link below and I'm going to continue talking about my processes, my growth, my plans, my direction as I keep working towards this, right? So stay tuned, subscribe to my channel so that you'll get updates, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope this is helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment and let me know what you think. If you have some, alternative perspectives around this, I would love to know. So, thanks for watching.